Greetings from New York City. I'm Phil and we're running the bridges. This is a video series where we visit all the bridges in New York City that you can run across. The big, the small, the old, the new, the world famous icons, and the ones you've never even heard of. And today we are back in the Bronx, back on the Bronx River, visiting the East 238th Street Bridge. And this is a very interesting bridge, and it's behind me there a little bit, so we'll get there in a second. And if I'm speaking a little loud, it's because I did this video once before and there was a lot of street noise and you couldn't even hear my voice. So just in case, I'm going to try to speak up a little bit on this. And this is in the very northern section of the Bronx, right at the foot of the Wakefield neighborhood. And even though this bridge is called 238th Street, we are not on 238th Street. We are on Nereid Avenue, and this is one of the little quirks of New York City. So this is Nereid Avenue. One block to the south of us is East 237th Street. One block to the north of us is East 239th Street, but we are on Nereid Avenue, and I'm not 100% sure why this is called Nereid Avenue. I think some of the residents would colloquially call this East 238th Street. But the best that I've been able to find out is that back in the day, a lot of the early 1900s, or even earlier, a lot of the firehouses around this area would give themselves nicknames, like water-themed nicknames. And one of the firehouses here called themselves Nereid, which is like a water nymph. And somehow that name stuck to the street. So in any case, it's Nereid Avenue. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's what Merriam-Webster says, so I'll go with it. If you have more information on that, you can leave a comment. But again, this is where East 238th Street would be, because it's 237 to the south, 239 to the north. And the cross street here, we are on Bronx Boulevard. And if you're interesting thing also, if you look behind us, a few blocks there is the subway, the elevated subway, and that's a 5 train. And the stop on that train, I'm just going to walk while we talk. The stop on that train is called Nereid Avenue, and at various times over the years, it's been called East 238th Street, or Nereid Avenue, or East 238/Nereid Avenue. But in the end, I think they just called it Nereid Avenue to avoid confusion with the 238th Street stop on the 1 train, which is on Broadway, just south of Van Cortlandt Park. And the confusion is especially because the Bronx has 2 separate numbering systems. The numbering system east of the Bronx River and west of the Bronx River. So that East 238th Street continues the Manhattan numbering system, but if you continue here on what would be East 238th Street, you will not get to West 238th Street because it's a different. In fact, if you continued here east, you would get basically to East 263rd Street, because you may remember me mentioning in previous videos that the northern boulevard of the Bronx, the northern boundary of the Bronx between Bronx and Westchester County was set in 1895. And it's basically a straight line. Well, the way the Bronx came into be a part of New York City, parts west of the Bronx River were annexed over the course of time up to the 1870s, and then in 1895, the final boundary was set between what would become the Bronx and Westchester County, even though Bronx was not a separate borough at that time. And it was basically a straight line. It ran at kind of an angle, and we are East 238th Street here. This is basically even with that line. Now, you remember also that I mentioned there was a little bump. It's a straight line except for a little bump. That bump is the village of Wakefield, because in 1895, the village of Wakefield chose to remain part of New York City. And so that's where we are now. We are in that little bump. And so everything, even though this street is even with the northern boundary of the Bronx, between the Bronx and Westchester County, we're in that bump, so everything, we're surrounded by Bronx. To the north of us is still Bronx. And of course, to the south and east and west is Bronx. But that will change when we get across the bridge, and I'll show you, because that is where the little crook of the boundary comes between Bronx and Westchester County, or more specifically, the city of Yonkers. All right, so we're just going to continue. So that was Bronx Boulevard. That street there, that's a bigger street. We're going to come up here to Bullard Avenue, which is a very small street, which is the closest street to the bridge itself. Now, this bridge goes over the Bronx River. It also goes over the Bronx River Parkway. It goes over a greenway. It goes over some railroad tracks. And it was proposed as far back as 1915, when people wanted to build a bridge, but there was a dispute over who was going to pay for it. How you doing? And if you're lucky, you might even come across a Jamaican barbecue. And anyway, so there's a dispute over who would pay for it, because these railroad tracks were private railroads at the time. And would the railroads pay for it? Would the city pay for it? By the time it was all sorted out, here's the railroad tracks. By the time it was all sorted out, and don't ask me why, a freezer, if you want a freezer. By the time it was all sorted out, construction didn't start until 1929. Completed in 1931. The bridge is opened on April 23rd, 1931. It's a concrete arch bridge. There are 10 concrete arches. And it doesn't look like a whole lot from street level. It kind of looks pretty ordinary. But from underneath, it's really nice, the concrete arches. And I took some video of it. I'll insert some video here. Even in the summertime, with the overgrowth of the trees, with the foliage, it's hard to see all of the concrete arches, but it's really pretty impressive. See, currently we're going over railroad tracks. Right now, this is Metro North. The New Haven line goes, or the Harlem line up to New Haven. It goes on here. I think there's some freight train tracks there as well. And there is a sidewalk on both sides. I'm on the north side right now. But anyway, so it was finally opened in April 23rd, 1931, along with about the same time as the bridge to the north, which we'll get to in a future video. All right, so, but here's the Bronx River. You can see it's pretty shallow here still. Yeah, it's nice though. Nice wooded area, and the greenway underneath. It's only accessible from the south end at 233rd Street at the Woodlawn station. And it dead ends. If you look at my video for the Muskrat Cove footbridge, there's more, you'll get a better idea of that greenway, which passes under the East 238th Street Bridge here. All right, and so now we're going over the Bronx River Parkway. And the interesting thing, when we get to the west side of the bridge, this is that crook that I was telling you about. So to the west, to the east where we just came from, that's the Bronx. To the south is all Bronx. To the north now will be Yonkers. And to the west, to the northwest will be Yonkers. To the southwest will be Bronx still. And I'll show you that. So we will come here at Webster Avenue and Nereid Avenue. And in fact, you can see that street sign, Webster Avenue and Nereid Avenue. And that's to the north. I should say that's to the north and the east. Here we are, south and east, I'm sorry, rather. To the north, see Nereid Avenue and Bronx River Road. And you can look across the street too and see the sign, Bronx River Road, because that is Yonkers. You can even see that there's a different font, a different style on the street signs. So on that corner is Yonkers. And the interesting thing, not only that, but then continuing to the west, you would think, okay, well, this is still Nereid Avenue or still East 238th Street. And then on the one side will be Yonkers and on the one side will be Bronx. Well, not exactly. You do have the Yonkers here on the north and Bronx on the south. Okay. But East 238th Street becomes McLean Avenue in Yonkers. And even weirder, even when you're still in the Bronx, it's East 240th Street. How does East 238th Street suddenly become East 240th Street when you're just going straight? I don't know. It's just one of the quirks. And you can see as you continue west, the road diverges and it kind of goes up to the, curves up to the north, and that's McLean Avenue. And if you take a turn over to the south, that's East 240th Street. So this is one of the interesting quirks in New York City geography. And as far as runners go, you're not far from, like I said, East 233rd Street. You can pick up the Bronx River Greenway. There's that dead end section that goes up to the Muskrat Cove footbridge, or you can continue south all the way down. There's not like a big park or greenway right in the immediate area here, but it's interesting to run all the bridges of the Bronx River. And this is almost the farthest north bridge of the Bronx River. So, but that's a look at East 238th Street Bridge. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope to see you out here running sometime, and we'll see where the wind takes us for the next one. Okay, bye-bye.